Beneath the surface of the Matrix lies an enigmatic code, an arcade key holding the potential to unlock the deepest mysteries of our reality and bestow upon us unparalleled knowledge and influence. Drawing upon the groundbreaking insights of Robert Edward Grant, we embark on an exhilarating expedition that penetrates the core of the Matrix, unearthing a complex web interlaced with mathematics, geometry, energy patterns, and frequency. Delving into the cryptic codes, concealed patterns, hidden energy, and the very essence of the Matrix itself, we edge closer to deciphering the enigmatic design that shapes our existence. Join us on this captivating journey as we disentangle the enigmas of the Matrix, laying bare its inner mechanisms and revealing the universal language that underpins its architecture. With each stride, we come nearer to comprehending the true nature of our reality, and once we seize the quintessence of this knowledge, the world will be within our grasp. By mastering this code, we liberate ourselves from the constraints of the Matrix, surmounting its limitations and harnessing the power to mold our destiny according to our desires. The quest beckons. Are you prepared to break free and embrace the infinite possibilities that await beyond the Matrix? When considering the potential existence of a universal language, one may ponder where it could be discovered. It has been speculated that such a language might be expressed through mathematics, geometry, energy patterns, and frequency. But what if this language, or at least its foundation, already exists here on Earth? Could it be that over thousands of years, we have been guided in creating this new form of communication? If this is true, what kind of information could be conveyed through this language that cannot be expressed any other way? To find answers, we must be willing to journey through both time and space. We must keep our eyes and minds open to notice compelling coincidences and to step back far enough to see if the building blocks of some kind of mathematical, spatial, frequency-based language emerge. Before we embark on this journey, let us first pause and take notice of the ways we currently measure and tabulate the world around us. This is an essential step because how we count and measure things can be just as important as the things we count and measure. Let us delve deeper into why we count things and how we measure them, starting with time. The smallest practical unit is 1 second. We all know that it takes 60 seconds to make a minute, and then 60 of these minutes to make an hour. The hour is the unit by which we divide our days, and these days become months, years, decades, centuries, and so on. Interestingly, many aspects of geometry, whether 2- or 3-dimensional, are derived from base 60 mathematics. These provide the foundation for a 360-degree circle, which in turn gives us all the angles and formulas for creating virtually every shape known to humankind. Moving on to counting and grouping things, we can see that many cultures from all over the world have been attracted to the number 12. We have 12 eggs in a dozen, 12 months in a year, 12 inches in a foot, and 12 signs of the zodiac. Strangely, whether it's tallying disciples or mythical gods, the number 12 often appears in the telling of our greatest stories about ourselves. When it comes to measuring distance, your local town might be measured in meters or other units. However, when we talk about measuring our planet, the standards we all use revert back to base 60 units of miles, minutes, or geometrical degrees. It's fascinating to consider how deeply ingrained this numerical system is in our understanding of the world around us. As we continue to notice the pattern of 12s and 60s, it begs the question, are they related? To answer this piece of the puzzle, we must travel back roughly 5,000 years to visit the ancient Sumerian culture of Mesopotamia. It is here that our 12/60-based math comes from. This counting system was invented by the same people who produced the world's first written language. It involved counting the knuckles of the 4 long fingers on one hand and then multiplying them by all 5 digits on the other hand. If you do this, you will get a maximum number of 12 knuckles times 5 fingers, which of course totals 60. How these cosmic jumps in language and mathematics occurred so suddenly is open to debate. However, it is interesting to note that the ancient Sumerians themselves wrote about being given this information by sky god visitors they called the Anunnaki. Who and what the Anunnaki were is a hotly contested subject, but one thing that cannot be denied is the fact that over 5,000 years ago, a mathematical system was born that incredibly still serves us today. Now that we have our various units of measurement all based on the Sumerian 12/60 counting system, let's jump forward to a few pivotal moments in history where other number patterns and synchronicities appear. In the 6th century BC, on the Greek island of Samos, the famed mathematician Pythagoras led a school of thought that married philosophy, mathematics, music, and of course, geometry. While Pythagoras did not discover advanced geometry, he did apply it in new ways, especially to music. Pythagoras noticed that when a taut string was plucked, it would create a tone, and when that string was divided in half, it would make the same tone, only twice as high in pitch. Pythagoras then came up with numerical ratios based on harmonic fifths, and this led to the creation of the musical scale found at the root of most modern music. It is important to note that according to Pythagoras, all musical notes were found by using mathematics and were given number values according to their placement in a kind of master grid. For instance, by using fifths beginning from note number 1, he was eventually guided to note 27. To find the same note twice as high in pitch, he simply kept doubling it to 54, 108, 216, 432, and so on up the scale. If you've ever heard of Pythagorean tuning, you know that the number 432 is quite important to Pythagoras himself. It probably wouldn't have stood out more than any other in his numerical grid, but in our quest to find a universal language based on mathematics and frequency, every piece of the puzzle counts. And it's fascinating to see how even in ancient times, people were discovering mathematical patterns that would later become fundamental to our understanding of the world. This particular note, 432 cycles per second, represents a significant piece of coincidental evidence. Many ancient musical instruments, from Tibetan bowls to Native American flutes, happen to produce the same tone. It vibrates at 432 cycles per second. That's compelling, but even more intriguing is the fact that Pythagoras was not calculating vibration cycles to find tone 432. It just happens to be the same number. For decades, most modern musical instruments were also tuned to this same fourth octave A with a value of 432 cycles. How could this be? Who chose this particular note as the keystone for instrument tuning? And most importantly, why? Here is where a deeper mystery begins to emerge, and to explore it, we will need to go back to Pythagoras' other passion, geometry. It is not an exaggeration to say that to Pythagoras and his disciples, geometry and math held a key to the nature of all life everywhere, and maybe it does. Let's look at the first 4 geometric shapes: the circle, triangle, square, and pentagon. Each of them has angles of degrees that, when added together, always total a specific number relative to that particular shape. For instance, if we take a triangle, the sum total of all 3 interior angles is always 180. For both the square and circle, it is 360. For a pentagon, it is 540. Now, at this moment, let's step back and look at these numbers in a different way, as there seems to be something about them that reaches beyond a simple sum of angles. Did you notice that they happen to be in the same numerical neighborhood as tone 432? What's more, they all add up to 9, just like 432. As an experiment, let's take a look at the numbers found in basic geometric shapes and then apply those numbers as vibration cycles to hear the tones they produce. First, let's listen to what the 180 total degrees contained in a triangle sound like. And here's the squares and circles, 360 in cycles per second, a perfect octave up from the triangle. What about the pentagon at 540? That sounds like a harmonic fifth of the other two. That's interesting. What are these tones? They are F sharp and its perfect harmonic fifth of C sharp. Let's keep going. What does a hexagon, 720, sound like? Another F sharp. Here's a 7-sided septagon which totals 900. This is an A sharp, which happens to be the note required to complete an F sharp major chord in imperfect 3-part harmony. And finally, the octagon, where we get 1080, another C sharp. Suddenly, geometry is expressed by tones, and these tones just happen to create the most beautiful form of music, a perfect three-part major chord in the key of F sharp. Is this something we've been missing for years? Is it important? To the famous philosopher and mathematician Plato, the answer would have been a resounding yes, for it is Plato who advanced the study of two-dimensional geometry into three-dimensional geometry, and who began to recognize that nature, whether expressed as a tone, the petal design of a flower, or the spiraling design of a seashell, seemed to follow a 3D mathematical pattern. In fact, it became an obsession of Plato to try and find the simplest three-dimensional geometric shapes, and his quest ultimately revealed what we now call the Platonic solids. In essence, these forms represent the most elemental construction blocks found both in human-made and natural forms. So let's see if and how they fit into our geometry tone grid. First, there is the tetrahedron, or a three-sided pyramid comprised of 4 interlocking triangles. As we did before, let's add up all the angles found in those 4 triangles. The answer is 720, which we have already seen is the tone F sharp. Next, we have the cube, whose 6 360-degree squares totals 2160. What does it sound like? 2160 is a high C sharp and, as you will see later, a very interesting number. Other reasons may exist as well. Next up is the octahedron, constructed of 8 triangles. This shape totals 1440, which is another perfect F sharp higher up the scale. The icosahedron is made up of 20 triangles, so the total number of degrees is 3600, which as a tone, 3600 vibration cycles create the A sharp needed to complete yet another F sharp major chord that sounds like this. At this point, we have seen how 2- and 3-dimensional geometry can be expressed by the notes found in an F sharp major chord. Could this also be true with what is known as sacred geometry? To find out, we will first need to build a design called the germ of life, which when repeated goes on to reveal the seed of life, then the flower of life pattern found at sacred sites all over the world. First, we start with a circle of 360 degrees, which is the familiar F sharp. We then add our second circle, bringing the total to 720. Another F sharp, 3 circles totals 1080, which provides the harmonic fifth of C sharp. 4 circles are 1440, another F sharp, 5 circles totals 1800, or the A sharp, which is muted to once again provide the harmonic third of an F sharp major chord. And finally, the 6th circle, which brings the total to 2160, another C sharp. Amazing. And it's as if we can now both see and hear the flower of life pattern that has intrigued humankind for thousands of years. So now we have 2-dimensional geometry, 3-dimensional geometry, and even sacred geometry being represented by different variations of an F sharp major chord. How is this not common knowledge? How have we missed this connection? There are actually 3 explanations. 1. For reasons ranging from the mundane to the conspiratorial, musical instruments are no longer tuned to an A vibrating at 432 cycles per second, but rather 442. 2. Modern tuning calls for equal temperament, which no longer adheres to Pythagoras' whole numbers simplicity. And 3. The tuning method required to reveal geometric shapes is based on a mathematical grid rather than mathematical ratios. The musical grid we've been exploring, which is based on the number 9, reveals not just some, but all of our geometric numbers. This factor 9 grid is the key to understanding the connection between music and geometry. By starting at note A at 216 cycles, we can add or subtract the number 9 to reveal all the other tones in that octave. In contrast, modern 440 tuning does not adhere to Pythagoras' simplicity and does not reveal any correlation to geometric numbers. Now, let's focus on one of these numbers, 2160. It is expressed by both the cube and the germ of life pattern. Without the 0, it is half of our magic 432. What is even more intriguing is that this number keeps showing up in other large-scale measurements. To discover one of these measurements, we need to jump forward from Plato's time to the flourishing Mayan civilization approximately 1500 years ago. Mayan stargazers were the most accomplished astronomers in the world, and their concept of cyclical time led to many incredible discoveries. They accurately determined the length of the year, the exact dates of seasonal changes, and even the moments when solar and lunar eclipses would occur. But their most amazing discovery was of something known as the precession of the equinoxes, which makes note of the very slow wobble of Earth's axis. Somehow aware of the fact that this wobble takes 25,920 years to complete, the Mayans called this cycle one great year, with each of its 12 great months requiring 2160 Earth years to complete. Did you know that the diameter of our moon, when measured in miles, also happens to total 2160? The appearance of this number in such diverse contexts suggests that it is more than a mere coincidence and may indicate a deeper underlying pattern in the universe. Let's take a closer look at the significance of the number 432. When we apply simple division to this synchronous number, 2160, we find that 2160 divided by 2 is 1080. By 3 is 720, by 4 is 540, by 5 is 432, and by 6 is 360. These angles correspond to the octagon, hexagon, pentagon, and square/circle, respectively, and all of them are F sharps and C sharps, with 432 thrown into the mix as if it were a clue to solving a cosmic riddle. It's worth noting that our closest celestial neighbor, the Moon, is 2,160 miles across, which is exactly half of 432. But what about the Sun? Did you know that the Sun's number sequence is exactly twice 432, and that there are 86,400 seconds in a day? 43,200 for the 12 hours of day, and 43,200 for the 12 hours of night? Or that if we take the 360 degrees found in the circular shape of the Sun and Moon, and then multiply it by the 12 hours of either day or night, we get the answer 4320. Even more fascinating is the fact that the only whole number that, when squared, comes to within 0.01% accuracy of measuring the speed of light is 432. What is going on here? How can all these different things, Earth cycles, time, and celestial measurements, be represented by these same numbers over and over again? To answer this, we must look back to the 5,000-year-old Sumerian 1260 counting system, which gave us the inches to a foot, the seconds to a minute, and the 360 degrees in geometry. It's almost as if the sky got visitors, who the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, who provided humanity with a counting system that would lead to the discovery of the synchronicities. Could it be that the number 432 really is a cosmic key that unlocks a language of higher understanding? And if so, have these sky visitors ever been back to make sure we don't miss the importance of the 432 matrix? One possible explanation for these synchronicities can be found in the story of George Van Tassel, an aeronautical engineer who claimed to have been contacted by extraterrestrial beings in the early 1950s. During this encounter, Van Tassel said he was given a mathematical formula that could be used for everything from time travel to sound frequency healing. The formula is F is equal to 1 over T, or frequency equals 1 divided by the number of time units. What if the 1 unit of time used in this formula was the largest one on our planet, the one great year of 25,920 years discovered by the Mayans? And what if the number for time was the most logical choice of 60? Suddenly, this mysterious equation is expressed as frequency equals 25,920 divided by 60, which equals 432. Not only is this the frequency that all instruments have been tuned to for thousands of years, but it also reveals the synchronistic nature of life on this planet. It begs the question, were other ancient cultures aware of these synchronicities as well? It seems likely as the Sumerian counting system, for example, includes the number 144, which is both a number and a tone contained within our factor 9 grid. As we expand outward, we find 1440 and 144,000, a number that appears all over the world in compelling ways. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza, covered with 144,000 smooth, white-casing stones. The ancient Mayans also used 144,000 days in their 394-year Bakhtun time cycle, which has just begun again. In the Bible, there is a reference to 144,000 chosen ones who will be redeemed from the earth prior to the apocalypse. Clearly, number sequences like these have been significant to many cultures and religious sects. The Freemasons, an enigmatic group of supposed keepers of sacred information, were also aware of the Factor 9 grid, the 432 key, and the number 144,000. Their infatuation with the numbers 3 and 13 is noteworthy. For example, if you divide 144,000 by 432, the answer is 333.3 into infinity. Furthermore, the shape of the flat-topped pyramid appears as if someone had drawn 4 dots in a line, then 3 above it, then 2 above that, and connected those dots to reveal the iconic shape. Let's not forget that the square root of all our important Factor 9 grid is 3 threes. In India, large cycles of time are called Kali Yugas, each one lasting 432,000 years. The number 432 appears so often in sacred structures and myths, from Stonehenge to the pyramids, that author Joseph Campbell considered it to be the most important mythological number in history. What is being expressed by all of these coincidences? One answer is that over the course of history, we have been guided toward the subconscious creation and eventual conscious recognition of a grand pattern based on frequency, mathematics, time, space, and geometry. These synchronistic numbers, shapes, and tones may represent the building blocks of a language that we do not yet fully understand, but that could turn out to be the most important language we will ever learn. How will we use it? Who will we be conversing with? Time will tell. Millennia ago, prophets, shamans, and seers from all over the world described an era when humanity would make some kind of cosmic leap into a next level of consciousness. Here, at the dawning of the age of Aquarius and the start of a new Mayan Bakhtun, maybe it's happening.